feel as though there are few things in life that are more disappointing or disorienting or challenging or maybe even traumatizing than the hypocrisy of our heroes from time to time. I remember as a kid seeing a particular documentary about an athlete that I had admired my whole life, and come to find out that the athlete behind the scenes off the field was not the person that we thought that he was. And it was pretty devastating to see this other side come out. Or maybe in recent years, there's been a lot of things around public figures and really people in the entertainment industry. Maybe you've had a particular actor or actress or musician or somebody that you've been really, really drawn to. They maybe even created meaningful music or a meaningful movie, something that spoke to you in a deep way. And then you come to find out later that they're not the person that you thought they were. And maybe that's a little bit unfair for actors. Sometimes maybe we attach more to the characters they play than the character they have. But there's also something to be said, public figures, people in public office, or people that we believe in, people that we hope are going to do great things in our lives, and then we find out later that they don't, or that something else was going on behind the scenes, even while great things were happening in front of the view of everybody else. It happens in churches too. And this is crazy to me. There's so much coverage today, there's so much media today around the fall from grace, or the challenges, or the things that people are wrestling with in secret, and those secrets eventually come out, and there's skeletons everywhere, no longer stuffed away in the closet. Maybe this has been the case for you. Maybe you've wondered, what happened to integrity? Like, what happened to people being who they say they are? What happened to people doing what they say they're going to do? What happened to people being trustworthy and of high character? Even in the church sometimes, and this is maybe one of the main criticisms that people have of Christians, they'll say this little phrase, right? Christians are so hypocritical. Christians are such hypocrites. We know deep down that integrity matters. We know that integrity is a virtue. We know that character counts. We know that all this stuff is true, and we want it to happen amidst all the people that we're around. We want to be around high integrity people. We want to be around people of high character. But the question that I want us to wrestle with today is whether or not we practice what we project when it comes to integrity. Are we the type of people that have high degrees of character? Are we the type of people, and this is the idea behind integrity. It isn't that everything is done right. It's that everything is held together. Everything is consistent. All right, last week I talked a little bit about, my waking up in the day and how that can go a little bit strange, because I don't know if I wake up as dad, or wake up as husband, or wake up as pastor, or wake up as son, or wake up as brother, or wake up as Charlie. I don't know. There's all these different hats that we have to wear, right? And if you literally had to change hats throughout the day, I want you to imagine changing hats throughout the day for every role that you play in life. I have a friend, she drives and she keeps a couple of hats in her car in case there's sun or something, or she needs to buy. Or she has it's a person who lives in Westport, and they have all these different Staples hats, So I remember one time we went to a game with them, and they were like, here, wear one of our hats, because you can be a honorary Staples fan. They just had all these hats sitting on the dashboard of their car. I want you to imagine that you had a hat for every role that you play. And how many times a day do you have to change those hats? How many times a day do you have to switch those hats? If we're not careful, sometimes those hats become more about the role than they are about the soul. And we forget who we are, or who we're with, or who we're supposed to be. The word for hypocrisy within the New Testament is the idea of wearing a mask. It's a theatrical word. Actors, there weren't any actresses in the Greek world when the word came out. So actors would literally put on a mask and play a part. But you and I, we go through so many role changes throughout the day. Sometimes we forget who we are, where we are. Anybody ever feel like being who you need to be at work costs you who you need to be at home? Anybody ever feel like who you need to be as a son or a sibling costs you who you need to be as a spouse? Anybody ever feel like who you need to be for a particular person in your life doesn't work when you're with another person in your life, and sometimes those friends come together and you don't know which hat you're supposed to wear with them? You ever feel a bit disintegrated? Like you can't be fully you with anybody. So you start wearing the mask, you start getting comfortable with the hats. I love this. I think about Leslie, and I don't talk about her often because she doesn't like it. But like Leslie knows more of me than anybody else. More of me than anybody. Like she knows the majority. She knows all the hats that I have to wear. But Leslie she can't because she's a finite human being. She can't know all of me. Like there are parts of my life that she's never been a part of. Who I am as an 8-year-old boy is completely unknown to her. And the things that happened to me at that age or who I was at that point in life. The things that I do on any given day, the amount of time that we're apart and how unaware she is of all the different things that I do throughout the day makes it so that she can't fully know all of me in any given moment. And here's the thing, I believe this about her. I believe that she loves all of me like that. Right? We're good there? We're good? Leslie loves all of me, but Leslie cannot heal all of me. There are things about me that are beyond her scope of care. And we talked about this last week. Only God looks upon you and sees all of you. Amen. Only the gaze of God can heal all of you. No person can do it, not even the best of them. And what ends up happening with people is we end up trying to meet the needs of everybody that's around us, right? And we think we're playing the hero, but heroic integrity is actually the fruit of faithful living. If you want to have heroic integrity, if you want to not be a hypocrite, but be a heroic person in this world, then you're going to have to go deeper in your faith and find yourself in the gaze of God who holds all of you together and keeps you integrated. You can't do it separate from him. Only God is big enough to see all of you and to hold all of you in one piece. Without him, our lives are fractured, disintegrated. We might say it this way, it feels like my life is falling apart. Feels like things are falling apart. In Revelation chapter 2 and 3, we've been learning from these 7 churches. I got you a different chart in a different color this week. Hopefully you can read it a little bit better. But these 7 churches that are in Revelation chapter 2 and chapter 3, Ephesus, Smyrna, Pergamum, Thyatira, Sardis, Philadelphia, and Laodicea, they each hear this phrase from God. I know your works. I know your works. I know the fruit of your life and the faith that it comes from. I see it. I see who you are and what you do. God says, I know. And that phrase to some of these churches is extremely comforting. God knows. And to other churches, it's a bit of a confrontation. God knows. I see your faith and I see the fruits that your faith bears. To those churches that are it's a confrontation are in Sardis and Laodicea, chapter 3, verses 1 and 2 says, I know that you have the reputation of being alive, but you are dead. Do you hear the hypocrisy in that? You have a certain reputation, but you are not. You have a reputation of being alive, but you are dead. And then he said, I have not found your works complete. You've got unfinished business in the faith. To Laodicea, he says, verses 15 to 18, chapter 3, you're neither hot nor cold. Were that you were either hot or cold, you are lukewarm. And if you know where Laodicea is positioned geographically, there are these 2 communities that have 2 different sources of water. One of them are hot springs, and the water was used for healing and restorative purposes. Another was an area of a river that came through. It was cold water. It was refreshing river water. And Jesus is saying to this church, you're not like either of those 2 cities. You're somewhere in the middle. You're not healing and you're not refreshing. I know your works. I know it's a confrontational thing that happens with Sardis and Laodicea. How is it that these 2 churches end up being so hypocritical? How do they get to this point? In Sardis, it seems like the incomplete works. And the inconsistency, or the inconsistency is in the incomplete works. They started something and they didn't bring it to fruition. They didn't bring it to completion. You know what I'm talking about. When you start something, you don't finish it. How important was that thing to you if you don't see it to completion? Jesus is saying, I know that many of you get into the faith, but you don't intend to see it to completion. It's inconsistent. It's hypocritical. In Laodicea, there's this element of they lack self-awareness. We talked about this at the beginning of this series, right? They said, I am rich. I have prospered. I need nothing. That's their profile of themselves in Laodicea. And Jesus says, but you don't know. You're poor. You're wretched. You're pitiable. You're naked. If you would take gold refined by me, you would be able to purchase white garments to cover your shame, and you would receive this ultimate position. Notice that Jesus doesn't say, you're not going to have anything, you're not going to be cared for, provided for. He says, you're trying to do it on your own, and because of that, you don't get it, you don't see yourself the way that I see you. I know you. There's an inconsistency there. And I think that inconsistency is the fruit of a shallow conviction. It just doesn't matter that much to you. And if it doesn't matter that much to you, you won't see it through to completion, and you won't be consistent in the process. Inconsistency is the fruit of a lack of conviction. These other churches, though, Ephesus, and you don't really hear anything, Pergamum and Smyrna, they get a different, I know, God knows their trials, He knows their sufferings, He knows the challenges that face them in their places. But in Ephesus, Philadelphia, and Laodicea, you get a little bit different. He said in verse 2, your toil in Ephesus, I know your toil and your patient endurance. You are enduring patiently. You are bearing up. You are not growing weary or faint-hearted. In chapter 2, verse 19, to Thyatira, he says, I know your love and your faith and your service and your patient endurance. Your latter works exceed the first. In chapter 3, verses 8 through 10 to Philadelphia, he says, I know that you have kept my word and you've not denied my name. You've kept my word about patient endurance. How do you know the depth of someone's conviction? It's bolded up there. What are they willing to endure? What are they willing to endure? We know the depth of conviction by the magnitude to which people are able and willing to endure. And this is the question for us today as we think about whether or not we have heroic integrity or hypocritical faith. What does my response to suffering reveal about the integrity of my faith? What does my response to suffering reveal about the integrity of my faith? If we could somehow weigh everything you walked into the door with today, if we could, hey, let's just stand on the scale. We're going to do a soul weigh, and we're going to just see how heavy it is in this space today. The magnitude of suffering, pain, disappointment, despair, heartache in this room alone would overwhelm us. Would overwhelm us. Personally, I'm extremely glad that God didn't ask me to carry it. What does our response to suffering reveal about the integrity of our faith? In Hebrews chapter 12, verses 2 and 3, we learn a little bit about how to endure. In chapter 12, verse 2, it says to fix your eyes on Jesus, the founder and perfecter of the faith. I don't know how, honestly, like the stuff that I hear people dealing with day in and day out, I don't know how people do it without God. It's crushing, debilitating, disintegrating. Fix your eyes on Jesus, the founder and perfecter of the faith, who for the joy that was set before him endured the cross, despising its shame, and now he is seated at the right hand of the throne of God. And that says again in verse 3, consider him, consider Jesus, who endured from sinners such hostility against himself, so that you may not grow weary or faint-hearted. Last week, and again, I've realized sometimes I give you guys too much to do, okay? So I just wanted to simplify again. Look to Jesus. Seek Jesus. Fix your eyes on Jesus. Consider Jesus. In the midst of your suffering, turn to Jesus. Now, that is the Sunday school answer, right? But none of us do it. We all go right to our own strength, don't we? Suffering, deal with it. Deal with it. Deal with it. Deal with it. Fix it. Fix it. Fix it. I can't fix it. Okay. Help me. Help me. Help me. Fix it. Fix it. Fix it. Oh, you can't fix it either? Help me. Help me. Help me. Fix it. Fix it. Fix it. We can't do it together. Jesus. Oh, there you are. Fix your eyes. Consider Jesus. Jesus has endured everything. Jesus holds the weight of the universe, including your soul, the weight of your soul. He holds it all today. God knows your suffering, and he knows that it forms your character. your integrity is shaped in the things you suffer. Not only is it revealed, it is also formed. That's what Romans 5:3-5 is saying, right? When Paul says that we think of all these things that we suffer, and in our suffering, it produces endurance. And endurance produces character. And character produces hope. And hope doesn't disappoint. Now, if you do the transitive property there, suffering to hope. Suffering equals hope. In whose world does suffering equal hope? In Christians' world. Because they know that suffering produces endurance, and endurance produces character, and character yields hope. God knows your suffering, and God knows that it forms your character. I was just thinking about people, and I don't want to share stories or things that are going to be too personal. So you're going to have to trust me that this is like real stuff. Okay, that real people that you know and I know, there's real stuff that comes into this space each and every week. Some of you carry just like deep internal wounds. Messages that you received as a child or from a loved one, from a caregiver, or things you didn't receive from caregivers, things that you don't even know, they're patterns that you repeat and you live out. There's stuff that has happened to you. There have been traumatic and dramatic events in your life that have shaped you, they have marked you, they have formed you, and you carry the pain of those each and every day. Internal wounds. Some of you have massive relational tensions in your life that you have to manage on a day-to-day basis. That hat switching thing is crushing you. Because you know when you walk out and see this person, you have to be this way, and then you walk out and see the next person, you have to be another way. And there's other people that you haven't seen because the drama has come to a point where it's so unbearable. You don't even want to be around each other. Internal wounds and relational trauma. Some of you guys just carry physical health stuff where it's like, my body doesn't do what I want it or need it to do. And it's so frustrating to live in this mortal flesh and to be a physical being, and the suffering and the pain that you experience on a day-to-day basis or seasonal basis is insurmountable. For some, it's been crazy the last instance. There's a pocket of people celebrating the political climate that we're in and what has happened in recent weeks. There are other people that this has been a seriously hard thing for. Seriously hard. Economically, politically, the world we live in is tough day in and day out. And some of you already today have gotten a notification from your bank and the money is not there. The thing that you want is not there. Or the thing that you feel like you need is unattainable. Some of it's internal, some of it's relational, some of it's physical, some of it's political, some of it's economical. God sees it all. He knows it all. God knew Jesus endured the cross and hostility. Jesus knows the weight of the world and the weight of worldliness. And his promise, as Romans 5 goes, is that he will strengthen you. He will form character in your suffering if you look to him. If you look to him. If not, you're just playing a game of attrition. And eventually, something's going to get you. And that will be the straw that broke the camel's back. It'll seem small at the time, but it's built up on a lifetime of self-dependence instead of God dependence. God will strengthen you in your suffering. And here's the promise of the gospel. He will straighten out all that stuff that's bent by sin. All that stuff that's twisted and turned by sin, God will eventually make right. God will straighten out everything that is bent. And so the question for us today is whether we have enduring or entertaining faith. Now, I'll be honest, I've gone to church a lot for entertainment. I mean, compelling speakers, good music, decent people, coffee, donuts. Not bad, right? Like, it's not, you guys are the worst ways to spend a Sunday. I think a lot of us have to ask the question of what type of faith, what type of adjective do we want to describe our faith? Do we want deep, integrity-forming, willing to endure suffering faith? Or do we just want to be entertained by church, by Christianity? What's the goal of your formation? Because if the goal is shallow, the formation will be shallow, the faith will be shallow, the integrity will be shallow. And people's claim that Christians are such hypocrites will continue to be true until people start seeking and enduring faith. Commercial Christianity, which is what I like to call the entertainment-oriented Christianity, it's Christianity that sells. Christianity that sells itself. Like Christianity that sells, it's the theatrical form of Christianity. And the commercial Christianity, it's filled with theatrical hypocrites. People who can sell something, people who can push something out, people with big names who become well-known but live unfaithful, disintegrated lives. Commercial Christianity is filled with theatrical hypocrites, whereas genuine Christianity endures because of authentic heroes. Do you know, again, big name, well-known, unfaithful people, do you know how many unnamed, unknown, faithful Christians there are in the world right now? The number of unnamed, unknown, faithful Christians far surpasses the big name, well-known, unfaithful ones. Christianity endures. Genuine Christianity, true Christianity, the Christianity that John has been preaching to these churches in Revelation, and we've been talking about for the last years. We seek first God's kingdom and righteousness. Genuine Christianity endures because of authentic heroes who do the faithful things, not the big spectacular things, but the faithful things day in and day out. There are more unknown faithful Christians than there are well-known unfaithful ones. And so we go back to Hebrews chapter 12, verses 1 and 3. We ask them, what are we to do as we fix our eyes on Jesus? How do we build, how do we form this enduring faith in the midst of our suffering? Chapter 1 says, to lay aside every weight and the sin which clings so closely. Do you desire a righteous life? We've got to lay aside the unnecessary weights and the sins that are clinging to our souls. Let us lay aside the weights and sin, and let us run with endurance the race set before us. Look to Jesus, the founder and perfecter of the faith, who for the joy set before him endured the cross and despised its shame, and is seated at the right hand of God. Consider him who endured from sinners such hostility against himself, so that you may not grow weary or faint-hearted. I've been saying it for the last few weeks, and I'll just say it again one more time today. The way you begin matters. The way you begin your week matters, and the way you begin your day matters. We begin our week in worship so we can seek the face of God together, so we can fix our eyes on Jesus, so we can consider Jesus, so we can bring all of our suffering, all of our pain before the God who sees and knows and promises to strengthen and straighten it out. It's why this time is so critical that we protect it. We make it a priority to worship together. And in this space, we find that we're able to lay aside the sins and the weights that so easily entangle and cling to us. We run with endurance the race that is set before us, and we don't grow weary or faint-hearted. We do the same thing each and every day, and the phrase is just a catchy phrase because I hope it annoys you, is that you begin your day with your soul, not your scroll. Your soul, not your scroll. Begin your day with God. Seek his face first and foremost before you start throwing hats and masks on for the rest of the day. Seek the face of God who sees all of you, all the elements of who you are known to God. Begin the day, begin the week with him. Let's practice being authentic Christians instead of projecting it on everybody else. And here's my promise, my hope, my prayer for us is that the Spirit in your heart will keep you from coming apart. I hope that the Spirit, as God indwells you, as he is faithful to reveal himself and live in your presence, in your flesh, the Spirit in your heart will keep you from falling apart, will keep you together. And it'll create a synergy in your soul that is greater than the sum total of your roles. You know, like I think about it this way. If you've ever seen I'm just in the cartoon world, so this will be the last illustration for today, but you ever see like a Lego movie or Lego show or something, and something happens to the Lego character and they just fall into a bunch of bricks? You know, maybe we go a little bit older school, we go back to like the Wizard of Oz when like the scarecrow gets ripped apart, like my legs are over there, my arms are over there, my hips are over here. You know, or Olaf, maybe a fan of Olaf. Like Olaf, something comes rolling at Olaf, and what does he do? Like all his parts come apart. And then somehow, right, in these cartoons and these shows, and this somehow something just happens to put it back together. The reality for you and me is that nothing just puts it all back together. We end up living as a bunch of fractured bricks, or as a stick and a carrot and a piece of coal. Or some of us over there, and some of us over there, and some of us over there. We live disintegrated. And it wearies us. It wears us down. And we keep wondering, who's going to put me together? Who's going to keep me together? How's all this going to work? Every day it feels like a new hat comes my way. Who's going to take care of me? The Spirit of God will live in your heart and will keep you together. And the Spirit of God will have this synergistic effect on your life where you will become more than the sum total of your hats. Because that's who God knows you to be. You are not the hats you wear. You are a child of God. And every week, every day, we seek His face to be reminded that we are loved, that He is good,